David Hume was an 18th century Scottish philosopher who was a key figure in what was known as the Scottish Enlightenment. Before Scotland became mainly known for its achievements in the field of stabbing people, it was for a short time considered one of the most literate and advanced societies in the Western world, producing great advances in the field of philosophy, political theory and science. Hume was a big fan of John Locke, and a large degree of his legacy was concerned with taking Locke's empiricism and running with it to the ridiculous extreme. The big thing for Hume was skepticism, which in philosophy is the epistemological position that true knowledge is completely unattainable and for all intents and purposes the real world, if there even is one, is unknowable. Because empiricism claims that all knowledge is derived from the senses, Hume concluded that the only statements that mankind can make about the world are those which place human experience in the absolute centre of reality, because human experience is as close as we can ever get to the truth. David Hume was somewhat notorious in his time for holding an unpopular and dangerous idea. You may have heard of it. It's called atheism. Although he couldn't really come out and say it, because atheism was still a crime punishable by death in Enlightenment Scotland, Hume thought the idea of God was nonsensical, specifically because there's no way of arriving at the idea through sense data, and for Hume, sense data was effectively all that existed. So solidly did Hume believe in sense data as the centre of reality that he even put forward the controversial concept known as bundle theory, which is the idea that features of objects are all that exist. There is no actual object of which they are the features. This is something that tends to sound like batshit ball-to-the-wall lunacy to anyone who hears it, but try to understand. Imagine a Granny Smith apple. You're imagining something round, green, shiny, and revolting. Traditionally, we call these properties. They're not the apple itself, simply features of the apple, ways in which the apple projects itself into the world. For Hume's bundle theory, there is no actual apple underneath it all, only the properties exist, and he defended this by daring you to imagine an object without properties. Strip the apple of its properties, and you wind up reducing it to literal non-existence. More controversial, though, is the implication of bundle theory to the idea of you. If this is true, then you don't exist either, and in fact Hume believed that there was no such thing as the self. There's just a whole bunch of sense data out there colliding with your brain, giving you the fabulously erroneous illusion that you are a thing that exists. This presents a stunning blow to Rene Descartes' idea that because he thought, at the very least he must exist. Hume says, no, sorry, you don't. Hume is also a big fan of the emerging idea known as the scientific method, championed by Galileo, Francis Bacon and Isaac Newton, which used interpretation of empirical data as the basis of all knowledge. However, one difficulty that Hume had throughout his life is known as the problem of induction, which basically points out that all science is based on a logical fallacy. The induction fallacy states that just because something happened in the past, we can't assume it's going to happen again, no matter how often it seems to happen. If all the apples you've ever seen in your entire life have been green, you still can't make the statement that all apples are green, because one day someone's going to hand you a red apple and you're going to feel like a wanker. This is philosophically a problem for science, because science is based on the idea that under the same conditions everything always happens exactly the same way, and if an event can be reproduced then we have knowledge about that event. Nevertheless, scientists don't seem too bothered, and even David Hume was forced to conclude that even though it doesn't make any sense, it still seems to work.